Welcome back to the Songs My Father Wrote. My name is Alicia Nardo, and I am here with my dad, my beloved father, Bob Bagden. Hi, Bob.
Hello, H.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Well, today we're going to start embarking on some of your Native American material. I'm very excited about this. And the song that we are going to feature today is called The Other Side of the Wind. And this song is about a very close friend of yours who has since passed. His name is Frank, and he was an Algonquin.
Algonquin medicine man, Native American, yes.
He was in your life for a very short time, but he had a very great impact. And I just want to let the audience know now that not only are we embarking on a Native American time in your life, it's also a very spiritual time in your life because you started to open up to abilities that you didn't know that you had.
Yeah, I could say that for sure.
So, Dad, let's just start from the very beginning. How did you meet Frank?
Actually, I met Frank before I met Frank. There is a song that precedes When the Ill Wind Blows that came out called Shaman or Shaman. People say it differently. Uh, I had a clear dream one night about an individual sitting in a cross-leg position in a golden field, long grass growing and flowing, and stroking an eagle feather in his hand. I got up the next morning and wrote that song and shared it immediately because it was so vivid with Johnny Leverett, the medicine lady that we've talked about in the past. Johnny kind of gasped on the phone and she said, "I need you to come out here immediately." And that Springfield's an hour and a half from our house, So, but when Johnny says, "Come," I did. So, anyway, she met me at the front door of the house and said, "I want you to meet somebody." I looked into the next room and there was a fella up turned away from me. I could only see his back, but I could see this long black hair, which is what I saw in my dream. And she says, "I want you to meet Frank DiContie." Frank is about to take over the medicine power of the Algonquian people from Grandfather Commander, who was also there at this time. This young native struggling with the decision he had to make and the powers that would be given to him. So I saw that before it happened, literally.
So you have this dream a week before you meet this man. In the moment that you met Frank and you understood that he was the man in your dreams, do you remember how you felt in that moment?
It's hard to describe the emotions. He turned around, very pleasant, put his hand out, we shook hands. And he said that Johnny had already shared the song with him. And he said, "So we know each other." I said, "Apparently." And that's how our friendship started immediately. And it was as if we had known each other for a lifetime. We became very close. And as you know, Frank came from an Algonquin village way up in Canada, was very limited resources. And I hired him in our business at his will whenever he could come down and put him to work. He stayed at our house. For the 1 or 2 years that I knew him, he made probably the most significant impact on my entire life. I think about him daily. I still keep some of the things right here beside me that he gave me during our friendship. And they were native kind of things. The horned owl feather,
Hmm?
gift of Frank, a horned owl claw, which is
Wow.
a gift from Frank, very powerful because he kind of dubbed me at that time as Owl. I had my visions at night when the owl tends to work his strongest medicine. So Frank would always jokingly say, "Owl." Yeah.
So it's really interesting to me too that you start opening up. I know when it happened to me, I immediately sought out teachers. My opening was very similar to yours and happened with my friend who is a Native American. But a lot of people don't have the opportunity to get a teacher like you did, who was a Native American medicine man. And did you find when he came into your life that he helped you to understand this opening that you had, this, some people might call it a psychic opening, some people call it a spiritual opening. Did he help you understand what that meant for you or what you were going to do with that?
Absolutely. Frank was the perfect example of what he stood for. He was truly Native American that had gone through what most Native Americans go through. Very poor community, very little opportunity. As a young man, got very deeply involved in alcohol to a point of alcoholism. He had used that word with me several times that he hated white men, and that if there was ever a scenario where he and white people would be in the same place and he had been drinking, it would always end up in a fight with him and them. He then had his awakening. So he's a perfect example of you know, a change and revelation and finding his way. But he was taken under the wing of Grandfather Commander, who passed away a couple of years ago in his 90s. And he held the wampum belt for all of the Algonquin people. What a remarkable guy. Grandfather helped Frank through all of the difficulties, got him on the right path, got him on the right education, got him to understand life. And Frank had a 180-degree turn in what he felt. And instead of not liking people, he went overboard to help everybody, no matter what race they were.
Now,
Uh,
did Frank get sober?
Frank got sober and stayed sober, as far as I know, for a long, long time. And you know, I like a beer. And I felt bad when Frank would work with us because he'd always ride with me and to a job. And at lunchtime, whatever, we'd go to the 401 in Marlboro and I sit at the bar. He would sit at the bar. And I would ask him, I said, do you mind if I have a beer? And he would say, yeah, I mind, but go ahead. I think we respected each other that way.
Do you think that Frank, given his challenges with the white man, would have befriended somebody like you had you not come into his life with that previous vision?
Yes, at the time of his life when I met him, he was open to everyone, again, no matter what race, especially people that had burdens that he saw. And it didn't have to be drinking. Could be family issues, could be anything. You'll hear me relate to love in almost every song that I have. And that's one of the clear messages that Frank left me with was love. And we need to love each other. We need to love red versus white versus black, whatever. Color should not matter. Everybody is a human being. And that's what he related. A lot of Native Americans will say that. Human beings, two-legged and four-legged, they relate to life a very simplistic but very natural way. And that we have to get along in harmony. And that's where he had come around to. He had come around to that perspective. The most significant message that he left with me, and this is in, these words are literally in two or three of my songs, is forgiveness. And he would always say, you can't love without forgiving. And if you're not forgiving, you're not loving. So that's the lesson that I learned from Frank more than anything else. He forgave. I mean, he did not like white people, and he had a reason not to. I mean, he was from where we lived. He was from where he was staying at our home in central Massachusetts, the Algonquin people. We'd go out on the porch at night and we'd have these deep talks. And he'd say, you're in my land. You're on my land. I've got to take care of it. I don't know whether you remember it, but we had a little hill between ourselves and the Barabys next door. And it was all full of leaves and a lot of rock. Frank spent a week or 10 days every day. He'd come home from work, he'd grab a rake and a bucket and a wheelbarrow and go up. He cleaned that pristine. And I said, Frank, what are you doing that for? He said, because it's my land. It's the earth. It's our land. This is where I'm from.
Mhm.
Right here is what he said. And I wouldn't argue with him.
In regards to the song, The Other Side of the Wind, the song that we are actually featuring today, when I first heard that song, what really stood out to me, and it was the message for the whole song, although it tells your story about you being the white man and him being red, the paragraph that stands out is it matters not your color, only the love that you have and give, for only when you share that love do you truly start to live. When I heard that, I felt chills through my body. I thought that was absolutely beautiful because it's true. Our world has gotten very complicated and it's so simple and it's so basic. And he lived that.
Yes, I mean, that was Frank straight out. If anybody wants to Google Frank DiContie, it's DiConti, Frank DiContie. Frank was extremely active in health and holistic type of meetings and sessions within the spiritual community of central Massachusetts, Western Mass, the Northeast, and all of Canada.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget our backyard. The first time that I met Frank, he had built a sweat lodge in our backyard. And you did that often in our house. Now, I live right down the street from where we grew up. And so I know what he's talking about, this land. It's keeping me here. So I understand that. But tell me about the sweat lodges. What was it like the first time that you did a sweat lodge with Frank?
Well, the sweat lodge is a very sacred ceremony in the Native American lore or medicine. And it had been several weeks or months that we had been friends, and he had been working on the land. And we had a pretty decent sized piece of property there. One day he looks up to me, he said, Bob, I think I'm ready. We're going to put a lodge. I'm going to build a sweat lodge here. And to my knowledge, I don't think he had done that ever before on any white man's property or even property that he assumed to be his at one point in time. It was a sacred ceremony. And he made me understand clearly that this was sacred and that everything he did, every sapling he cut, every corner that he put his first 4 saplings in and his next 4 saplings, I mean, it gave me goosebumps then. It does give me goosebumps now. And I just said, how can this thing even stand up? And he built a lodge that 10 or 12 people could get into in our backyard. And he brought them from the neighborhood, that people that he felt were sincere.
Hmm.
He threw some sweats. And I think you have to be inside one to understand, and you can't relate it in words. I mean, and I'm not even going to try. Very powerful, powerful, powerful. There's also words in that song that is hot stones, cold water, rising mist, that have real relevance because he takes two completely different elements and puts them into the heat, and there's a congruous result that comes up that they're mixed. And there's a big, deep message in even that action. The first couple of sweats, he wouldn't let me go in. He said, I'm going to give you a very important responsibility. You'll be keeper of the fire. And I said, what do you mean, keeper of the fire? And he said, we're going to build a fire. We're going to cook stones. I need hot stones for this inside the lodge. And when I call for you, you have to bring me a hot stone inside. And you place it at the door. I couldn't go in the first ones. Well, he built a fire in our backyard that I thought Marlboro was going to put me in jail for. And I said, Frank, there's all woods back here. There are acres of woods. He had a fire taller than me. The flames were going, and they were just licking against branches at the trees. He said, that's a sacred fire. Don't worry about this fire. Don't worry about your woods. Nothing's going to happen. It's a sacred fire. Nothing happened, of course, except the stones were all heated the way they should have been. Some of this stuff you just can't make up. I'm so sure.
No, you can't make it up. And when I first came home from New York City that weekend and he had set up the sweat lodge, I was disappointed because I wasn't allowed in. Apparently, when women are, and I don't mean to be too personal, but when you're on your monthly cycle, you're not allowed in the sweat lodge. So I missed out on it that weekend. It was the only time that I had come home and there was a sweat lodge in the backyard and Frank was there because he had died shortly after that.
As soon as we got the message that Frank had passed, almost immediately I got a call from Canada, from Algonquin people in Canada that said, there's a sweat lodge in your backyard. And I said, yes, there is, that Frank built. He said, do not touch it. Do not go in it. Do not let anybody near it. We will bring down a group of people over the next weekend and dismantle it the way it's supposed to be dismantled. And 2 carloads, 8 people came the following weekend, natives, and they dismantled the sweat lodge, blanket by blanket, sapling by sapling, stone by stone, filled in the hole, the dirt, everything the way that it should have been done by ceremony. And we honored that. I mean, to me, that was just a confirmation of the power that Frank had and the faith that he had in us that he would even do that.
I love spirit, as you know. Another time I came to visit you, I was getting ready for bed. And as soon as I shut my light off, about 10 minutes in, I felt somebody sit on the end of my bed. And I jumped up, I turned my light on. My heart was beating really fast. It was that moment you knew that you weren't alone, but you couldn't see anybody, that somebody had just come and visited you. And I slept that night with the light on. I came down the next morning and you said, "Hi, honey, how did you sleep?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really. My light was on." And you said, "Oh, did Frank come and visit you?" And we had this understanding like, yes, he did come and visit me. And then you had told me that he had been showing up in your studio, I guess, your music studio. He had put his hand on your shoulder. If it wasn't earlier that day, it was recently he had done that to you. So you knew that he was around.
Wow. Yes. And you just opened a huge door. His impression, we had a whole music studio in the house downstairs, but his impression was his voice, or any native voices, really shouldn't have been recorded, and that his music and his drum should never have been put on electronic means. Once he knew, and he knew he was going to die. He had so many heavy talks about that. And I kept telling him he was crazy. It was heart issue. And they said, no. He said, a few weeks. And one day in the evening, he said, let's go downstairs. I said, downstairs? He said, yeah. He said, I want to do something on the tape. And I have a tape of him 2 weeks before he died, just playing his drum and singing a medicine song. You know, I think he wants me to, or he wants us to put this on at this stage of the game.
Do you still have that tape?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're going to have to cut it in here someplace.
Well, that's going to be your project for the week. You've got to get that cassette transferred into a digital file somehow.
I will, definitely. That won't be difficult.
You've had the experience of working with elders who were Indigenous and had so much to share. And part of what is fueling your fire to get these songs recorded and out there is because you feel that the world is losing this message right now. How do you think that we could get, other than what we're doing, how do you think listeners can honor that wisdom of the elders and the teachers?
All right. A little bit of a lengthy answer, but I'd like to use the whole length. First of all, this song is a story. It's not about the melody or the rhythm or the music itself that's behind this song. I've said from day one, I'm about the message. It's all about the words in the song. It's the message. I use the music as a medium to help project the message. So here, this is one of the earliest attempts at using some native chants and maybe a flute or something in the background to help convey the message. But people listening to the podcast, when you get to the song, just listen to the words, because the song's words are the depth and message of life. And one of the things that I absolutely believe is that we've lost so much that Native Americans lived by. Now, not every tribe was a nice tribe. Not every native was a nice native. They were human beings and they had their own problems. But they had an understanding of our earth, mother of the earth, living with creatures and animals, and living within their own society in a hierarchy that they respected and honored, that I believe we've lost completely, honestly. There's earthquakes going on all around Alaska right now, and apparently there were several in Russia this past week. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I'm just saying, you know, the natives said a long time ago that you play with Mother Earth, she's going to get you back. She's going to bite you. And I think that she's ready to bite us. So we need to understand that we need to care a little bit more about the planet we live on and how we treat her. And we also need to understand a little bit more, and maybe it's me because I'm old now and I'm getting upset and nobody listens to me. But I think in the Native society, the elder was created and put in a level of respect. And today, an elder starts at 50 or 60. And once you're 50 or 60, I think the ability for people to listen to what you want to say to them diminishes every year from that age. We are losing the touch, the feel, and we are losing the respect that we should have for other people. This is intended to come out of this song. Those aren't the exact words in it, but if you hear what I'm explaining and then listen to the song, you say, "Oh yeah, that's where that's going," and that's what he lived for. He saw it happen. The night that he told me I wouldn't see him alive again, I told him, "You're crazy. You're gonna be back here working with me." And he was heading off to that big powwow. He knew. He knew that he was headed to the other side of the wind, and he used those words. And the other side of the wind is literally life after death in his vision. And the end of the beginning and the beginning of the end is the same thing. It's death itself because you're transitioning. Now, he indicated he understood where he was going. I wish I understood where he was going, but he wouldn't go beyond that in his conversations. But he would say at that time, we're not through. And I think I've told you, I came to Florida shortly after he died. I was riding a motorcycle. I was in trouble on Route 27 going south in the state. I had a few seconds on the bike and my mind just flashed, Frank, please help me. And a red-tailed hawk came right down beside me and stayed beside me on the bike for maybe 3-4 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. And from that point on, every time I want or ask for help and it's serious, a red-tailed hawk shows up and it's Frank. I know it's Frank.
Yeah.
So you call me crazy, you can do whatever you want, but I know that that's what it is. Another thing that he did in New England, we were about to have a hurricane. He went out in the woods and he came in with a piece of birch bark and he put it on the front door of the house. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Just protecting your house. Don't worry, you're all set." And I thought about the fire. I said, if he says it's not going to burn, it's not going to burn. So we didn't have anything happen at all to our house during that hurricane. I have that piece of birch bark on the front door of this house today, and we've been through 4 good serious storms here in Florida since we've been here and never have had an issue. So Frank, thank you, Frank. God bless. I only reach out to Frank when I absolutely have to. When I do these songs on Suno, and Suno attaches a picture to it. And when I did the Shaman song, the picture that was attached to it was an old branch that had no leaves and all sorts of ribbons and everything hung on it. That's what's over Frank's grave. Mom and I took a motorcycle trip a year after he died and rode all the way up to Canada. Now he's way on the other side of Montreal, and it was a long trip. And we got there and went to his grave, and we have pictures of it. And it's more than coincidence that that's what came out as the designator for this song. Because I can take the picture I took at his grave and put it right beside that, and I'm going, holy mackerel, this is exactly what's still in his grave.
Mhm.
We miss him. He was a great guy. He could diffuse rather than start, which he did when he was younger. He could diffuse most anything. And he had the talent to do it in very simple language and discussion.
Just in his presence.
Yep. Well, people understood it. I went to one healing session with him where he only had 12 people go in, and there were some serious, serious problems within the people in that group. And I just couldn't believe how he could deal with them and the attitude of people coming in versus when they left. It's a special talent, a special gift. And whether it has to do with Native American or human or whatever, I don't know. But this just happened to be Frank, medicine man, for the Algonquin.
I would say that this was an amazing tribute to Frank DiContie, your friend, and great influence on your life. And I'm so grateful for the time that you took today, Dad, to help us to learn a little bit more about Frank. I don't think that we're going to hear the last of him. And I'm really excited to be starting this segment of our podcast and start to really dive into the Native aspect of your life, because there's a lot of songs and there's a lot of messages there, and they're very powerful. And I don't think there's a song yet that hasn't made me cry or breaks my heart and heals my heart in the same song. So pretty incredible stuff.
Absolutely. I agree. But again, it's not me. They're using my hands to either write or type, and now a little bit of my hands to set music and things to it. I appreciate everybody's interest in it and all the good comments.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we'll stop there. I love you very much, Dad. Thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait for the next episode. I love you. Take care.
Deep in the lodge, the drum beat starts, a deep sounding rhythm straight from the heart, beats on the wind. Vocals soon follow with verse about man, songs of the people and songs of the land, songs for great spirits, songs about strife, a song praising peace, a song praising life. Float on the wind, high on the wind. He sings of a journey about to begin, a journey that takes him far and wide, across and through to the other side of the wind, the other side of the wind. In the lodge, the drum beat rolls, songs and stories from times of old form on the wind. Inside the shaman, just simplicity and truth, so much to gain, so little to lose. His dark piercing eyes, history holds, he sees right through lies, straight into the soul. Listen to the teachings of this medicine man, for he's soon to travel to another world on the other side of the wind, to the place where the beginning ends and the end begins. Hot stones, cold water, steam rising from the sacred fire, sharing peace and wisdom in his final hours. Ride the wind, my brother. He was red, I am white, we became close friends. We sat and talked late that night about the other side of the wind. I was wrong, he was right, his walk here was near its end. He'd soon fly with the eagle and out to the other side of the wind. He asked me to continue his words and the message that he sends. It matters not your color, only the love you have and give. For only when you share that love do you truly start to live. Hear this people, it is on the wind, to the place where the beginning ends and the end begins on the other side of the wind. His words were gone for just 1 year, and now they're back again and again from the other side of the wind. The